Hey guys, what is going on? It is me, BakuriBox12 here, and welcome back to another Realm of the Mad God video. I've been playing this game for quite a while now, and in that time, a lot has happened. A lot of experiences, a lot of changes, a lot of fun, some frustration, but a lot of fond memories no less. So today I'd like to talk about a handful of things that I really love about Realm of the Mad God, the things that make me want to keep playing the game, or that years ago were what drew me in, and that I had a blast doing. These are in no particular order, and I believe both the Mothership and GHCD have done videos exactly like this, but in any case, that's what we're here to talk about. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is Realm's art style. Since the very beginning, it's always been something that caught my eye and really helped distinguish it from other indie games on Steam. Yes, it is a Flash game, so you could just say that they were cutting corners using the technology that they had, but pixelated games have always had a special place in my heart. I find them very appealing, both in graphics and music, and simplicity in video games almost always leads to imagination. It gives you room to fill in the gaps with your own mind, which can often be a more effective way of setting a scene, rather than the game doing it for you. But what's interesting about Realm's graphics is that it's not really any one style. Yes, it is based off of a set of sprites that anyone can acquire the rights to and use, but it's in this sort of in-between area. You can do a side-by-side comparison with any other styles and you'll see that it's not 8-bit, it's definitely not 16-bit, it's this blocky 8x8 style. It doesn't really fit into a pre-existing category and therefore stands out as its own category. And on top of that, I gotta commend the game for, even way back in the beginning, having a ton of enemy variety. So many different types of enemies, and a lot of them go completely unnoticed, especially the stuff early game that you only see when leveling up. Like sure, you might fight a horned drake or two whenever the realm is closed, but things like the desert werewolf and great lizard are usually things that you stumble on by accident when you're running around aimlessly because no one can find a Godlands, or maybe you're that one person who's looking for a Candyland. And the big mobs of enemies that you can find in the desert, Sandman conventions have always been a treat to see, and just seeing that giant clutter of enemies and different color palettes really shows that even when it's a mess, Realm is pretty visually appealing. And that's not even getting into the rest of the map. I've always loved how Realm has this progression from the beach to the Godlands. Sure, it gets samey after a while, but it's a consistent world to travel through. It teeters on open world in a sense. It's not like we have this long list of side quests to go on or anything. It is a very simple game with a basic premise of go over here, kill this guy, take his stuff, and do that a whole bunch. But in a very literal sense, you can go anywhere at any time. There are no restrictions, nothing's blocking you off. You don't need a key to get in somewhere, you don't have to be a certain level to enter a certain dungeon. It's all open. And of course we have the dungeons themselves, all individually themed after something unique. You can have generic stuff like pirates and spiders, cemeteries, graveyards, or completely wacky stuff like the sprite world in outer space with all those colorful lights, the Candyland hunting grounds oozing with creativity. You've got dungeons that take place underwater, in a sewer, the abyss. I can say with confidence that no two areas visually, and even structurally a lot of the time, feel the same. Even the sound design is something that I overlook, since I don't play with sounds or music on. But when I do turn it on and I hear it again, I remember how fitting a lot of these sounds are. These bubbly echo shots for sprites, wet gloppy sounds when you hit a slime, the strange cries of demons and goblins when they die, and my personal favorite, that really crunchy sound whenever you hit a construct. Weapon sound effects, however, do get pretty annoying rather quickly, mainly because you're almost always shooting in this game, but one sound effect in particular that I overlooked for the longest time was the level up sound effect. I never realized how satisfying that thing was to hear. Same thing whenever you get a loot drop. It's the sound of instant cash hitting the ground. I think white bags should get their own sound effect. Something a little more holy, a little more climactic. That'd be nice. But we can't talk about the sound effects without, of course, mentioning the music. The one-track wonder, if you will. It's kind of a meme at this point that Realm needs music because it only has one looping theme, which, to be fair, is sort of the norm whenever it comes to open world games or MMOs or games in general that have a really big hub area. They just have one theme for it. But repetition aside, I actually really do like Realm's main music. Sorcerer's Tower, I believe, is the official title, which is ironic because I don't know if the Sorcerer was out when this game was released. Let me look that up actually. Yeah, no, it was released in a later build. Yeah, they probably just used that as a token mystical name. It fits. But yeah, I really like the music. I think it's a pretty good central theme. Kinda has this mash of dance-oriented music and orchestral. I love the piano in it, and it kinda goes into these movie score type strings at points, which I think is pretty sweet, especially whenever the percussion breaks off and isolates those two tracks. I find that it's appropriately mystical. It has an aura to it for sure, and definitely holds a lot of nostalgic value for me. On top of that, I've always found that Realm's main hook, for me anyway, was how brutal it was. And I've commented on this a lot before, I know, but it does bear repeating that games that kind of push me around only make me want to beat them more. So you can imagine that I became quite addicted to this game at first, because not only is it very hard in the beginning with a pseudo bullet hell style, but it's permadeath. So when you die, you lose everything and reset your progress, meaning you can't just continue from all your good stuff and squash all of the lower level enemies. And even now, that is still a very alluring quality about the game for me. I've had people outside of Realm's community comment on my videos before saying that they would really like the game if it didn't have permadeath. They find that that's an unnecessary choice to reset a player's progress like that, but I think anyone can tell you that if you take away permadeath, you take away what makes Realm Realm. It's kind of the whole core of it. It's supposed to be punishing. Some of the enemies and technical problems could be balanced out and refined, sure, but you can't take away the core. And a lot of what makes Realm so frantic to begin with is its heavy elements of RNG, but not a complete reliance on it. Too much RNG is definitely not a good thing. You don't want your entire journey to be left up to chance, whether you live or die to be random. No, you want there to be random elements that present challenges within them, and if you fail to overcome those random challenges, that's when you live or die. An enemy can have a consistent attack that they use, but how they move around while using it may be inconsistent, a little random, spontaneous. You can't quite read them, but it doesn't mean the fight is unfair. It just means you have to use your instincts. If the game throws something your way that's really wily and unorthodox, you can learn from that and learn to beat it next time. At least that's how I've always seen it. It definitely has a learning curve, that's for sure. It's not a game that everyone can just pick up and play. But at the same time, that has led to a relatively small, pretty tight-knit community. You can reach out to basically every player. We've got a pretty close community on YouTube. A lot of little channels, some bigger than others, but no one ever gets too big. It's not super competitive, so really anyone can join if they want, and that is really nice. That's how I got my start. So it is cool to have a small community of people that can reach out to one another and not feel like everyone is so spread out and divided. But, you know, a bigger community would be nice too. While my initial reason for playing Realm in the first place was how insanely hard it was, now my primary driving force has been changed to the very addictive loot system. The idea of kind of rolling the dice, killing a boss, and not quite knowing what you're gonna get. I mean, yeah, if you do a snake pit, you're guaranteed a speed. But for the bigger enemies who drop really good stuff, and those really rare items that you're not sure if you're gonna get, and you know that when I say that I'm talking about white bags. I think it's the one unanimous agreement that the driving force for a lot of players, and an excitement like no other, is hitting the jackpot and getting a white bag. No matter how useless the item itself might be, seeing that bag is just, oh man, look at it. The color scheme is perfect. Now all the bags in the game have this weight to them. You can tell that there's something inside, but with a white bag, there's weight put towards the bottom. It has this oblong, almost triangular shape to it. There's something different in there. There's something good in there. You've got that beautiful blue lace. I'm already a sucker for sky blue, but it complements the white so well. These would make some excellent Christmas cookies, I'm just saying. And the whole idea of having this extremely rare table of loot is, again, a huge driving force for playing a game. You could be at the most monotonous grind of your life, killing the same boss over and over, dying of boredom. But when you get that white bag, it's all worth it. It was all worth it. It doesn't matter now. You have it. You get to see it. They even extended the duration of how long white bags will be on the ground, because they knew that not only do you need more time to pick it up, but now you get to look at it longer. This also applies to one of my favorite additions to the game, the mark system. Yeah, say what you will about them not being able to stack, but alongside the daily login calendar that rewards concurrent players for coming on every day, I like how most dungeon bosses in the game now drop a mark that you can then collect a whole bunch of and turn in for a chest that you can kill, and it gives fame and usually pots, and sometimes really good items. It's good stuff. It gives people a reason to play even when they have it all. And my affinity for this super rare loot is directly affiliated to the last thing I want to talk about, which is endgame content. Essentially really hard dungeons or content in general that are meant to be very final level-esque, which really only applies to the Shatters and Lost Halls. But in any case, these areas are meant to be the quote-unquote finale to Realm. If you wanted to have a beginning, middle, and end, these would be the end. And finales, to me, are always the most memorable parts of any game. Really, any form of entertainment. It's the last thing in my head when I finish it up. And I tend to get sentimental when things are over. Plus, the Shatters is probably runner-up for my favorite dungeon in the game, only because it's so much more of an adventure compared to everything else. It's not just a series of rooms you're going through. There's history behind it. It appears abandoned, old, forgotten, dangerous enemies, unique terrain, magma seeping through the cracks, and definitely some good loot to be acquired. I'm curious to see what else they add in the future. So, those are the main things about Realm of the Mad God that I still really love. They're what keep me going and what I fondly look back on. So, that's all I've got for you today. Please feel free to share what your favorite things about Realm are. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, don't forget to check out the next episode whenever I post it, which will probably be soon. Alright. See ya.